If you are constantly getting in your own way, I would assume you're constantly changing your actions based off of what you feel. We need to uphold our commitments and follow through with what we said we would do, having great integrity. But while we hold space for our emotions, most of the problems that you're struggling with are all pattern driven. It's what you've done for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 20 years. Self-sabotage is all pattern driven. So if you find you always sabotage, I bet if we removed the emotion, zoomed out and audited this thing, you would notice it's the same 5 or 6 things. It's, oh, you do good until you lose motivation, or it's you do really well until Christmas and then you fall off. The biggest thing with this is identify your patterns and put an immediate stop to them. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. If you're new around here, my name is Jared Hamilton. I'm your host, because we all know outer work without inner work doesn't work, and that is what we're getting into on the show here today. Now, in today's episode specifically, I'm going to give you your strategic guide to getting out of your own way. Because it's ironic, I have a lot of conversations with a lot of individuals every single week, and a very big thing that comes up when I ask them, like, cool, what's stopping you from getting to where you want to be? What's keeping you from hitting your goals or what have you? And most people say, oh, it's me. I'm the problem. I can't get out of my own way. Well, that surfaces for different people in different ways, and that comes up differently. Now, at the end of the day, it's just saying get out of your own way is not very helpful or strategic. It's kind of like when someone just says, be mindful. It's like, well, what the fuck does that even mean? So today I actually have I think there's like 15 bullets on this list of basically strategic ways to get out of your own way. So hopefully if you feel like, if you've ever said that, if you're like, man, I just can't get out of my own way, hopefully one of these bullets hit home with you and is able to help. So let's just jump right in, because there's a lot and we don't have a ton of time. So let's dive in. Number one, how to get out of your own way is number one is know your patterns and put an immediate stop to them. What I mean by that is most of the problems that you're struggling with are all pattern driven. It's what you've done for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 20 years. Like, it's ironic. One of the biggest reasons people either join my programs like the Collective or apply to work with me in one-on-one coaching is to help stop this pattern of self-sabotage. Well, the ironic thing with self-sabotage is you've done the same thing the last like 10 years. It boils down to like the same 5 or 6 things. Self-sabotage is all pattern driven. So if you find you always sabotage, I bet if we removed the emotion, zoomed out and audited this thing, you would notice it's the same 5 or 6 things. It's, oh, you do good until you lose motivation, or it's you do really well until Christmas and then you fall off, or things are going really well until you start to get attention and someone starts noticing your results and you go and you panic and you fall off. Right? It's the same thing over and over again. So the biggest thing with this is identify your patterns and put an immediate stop to them. If you know every time you lose motivation within 3 weeks, well, don't be ignorant to the fact of you're going to lose motivation here in about 3 weeks of starting anything new. I have someone I'm working with right now who one of the very first things she told me on her application call was she goes, I never make it past a month. I literally make it on any program I've ever done. I get to a month and I always get upset and I fall off. So I told her, I go, well, about a month in, you are going to have every fiber in your being want to fall off my program. And it's just how your pattern is, but we're not going to follow through on that pattern. So one of the first and easiest ways to get out of your own way is know your patterns. Take a moment, reflect, and ask yourself, what are your 5 or 6 patterns that always resurface, and then put an immediate stop to them. Don't let them run on autopilot. You're in control. You have free will. If you know you have a bad day and you want to hide your emotions with food and you feel that desire, go hold space and sit in those emotions instead of going to food. Just another example. So that's number one, is know your patterns and put an immediate stop to them. Okay. Number 2, getting out of your own way. Stop negotiating with yourself. This is a big one. How often do you catch yourself negotiating, right? It'll be like let's say a Sunday night and you're like, I'm going to get up early tomorrow. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do my thing. And then that next morning you're like, I think I'll go later, or you know what, I deserve to sleep. Like you start negotiating with yourself. Stop. Anytime, this goes for anything. Like, oh, well, I think I should probably hold off because if I can't be all in, I want to be all out because I'm such an all or nothing person. Stop. You are negotiating with yourself. Oh, you know what, this doesn't happen very often. I'm going to just press pause. No, stop. You're negotiating with yourself again. Notice anytime you negotiate with yourself, it is sabotage sneaking in. So the second easiest way to get out of your own way is stop allowing self-negotiation. When you start negotiating, oh, wait, maybe I don't really want my goals, or, oh, I know I said I do this, but I'll just do it later, or I'll just do it tomorrow. Stop. Don't get me wrong. I get stuff comes up. I get real life happens. I have all the time where, like, if I can't make it, I couldn't make it to the gym yesterday, so I'm going today, but I'm not negotiating with myself. Oh, I'll just not make up that workout. You know what I'm saying when I'm talking about this is most people who constantly get in their own way, they're constantly negotiating with themselves. Oh, you know what? I think I just won't do this because I really, things are too much here, or I'm such an all or nothing person, or if it can't be perfect, I don't even want to do it at all. The biggest one I hear a lot around this time of the year, the time of recording this, it's December, is people who want to get their life together and they say, oh, I want to lose weight, get to where I want to be. They say, oh, well, if I can't give it 100% of my attention, I'll just wait till I can. Well, you're a freaking adult. You're never going to have 100% of attention to give to anything because life happens. So that, again, is another example of negotiating with yourself. Easiest way to get out of your own way is catch yourself, as it kind of goes back to number one, is a pattern of negotiation, and then stop negotiating with yourself. Number three, I'm going to lose track of what number I'm on here soon. So next one, number three, follow through on the exact commitment you make with yourself, especially when motivation or desire changes. Look, resistance is normal. Setting out to change your life is never easy. No one ever changed their life on an accident. And when it comes to these deeper things where you're changing entire parts of you, it's not like you're just eating in a calorie deficit. You're quite literally changing your identity, your belief systems, and then aligning your actions with a different version of you. That's the kind of shit we're doing here. So there's going to be resistance. It's like you spent your whole life crossing right over left. You're crossing your arms right over left, and now you're crossing left over right. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be not very perfect, so to speak. But when it comes to where most people get in their own way is they change their commitments. Like someone will say, oh, whether it be something simple, like I'm going to be in a maintenance phase for 12 weeks. Well, then a month comes in and they're like, I think I'm just going to do it for a month and then I'm going to go back to being in my deficit. Well, no, you broke the commitment you made because you don't feel like being in maintenance anymore. You see? Or let's say you're like, no, I'm committing to journaling every single day for the next 6 months. But then because now you don't feel like journaling every day, you go, oh, you know what? I think I'm not going to. Stick with the commitment you made, especially when the motivation or desire changes. Because you have to understand this. You will never be motivated 100% of the time, and desire changes. But think of it this way. How many times have you had any other area in your life, a job you love, you have a bad day and you're like, why do I even have this job? Or your kids that you love, but there are days you're like, I just wish I wasn't a parent today. Those things are normal, but we cannot change our commitments based on our feelings, where we talk about this one a little bit later on this episode. But one of the biggest ways people get in their own way is they stop following through on the commitments you made, or they made, I should say. Because at the end of the day, if you made a commitment of, I'm going to do this for 3 months or 6 months, follow through on it. Just because you don't feel like it anymore, or just because you don't want to do it anymore in this moment, doesn't mean you can give up on that, right? Because this is the stuff that will transcend into other areas in your life. Imagine what would you tell your kid? Right? Imagine your kid said, all right, I'm going to try out for football and I'm going to give it my all. And then a week in, they're like, I don't want to do football anymore. You probably wouldn't let them just quit. You would probably have the conversation of, no, you committed and you're in this for the whole season. You are going to do your best because that's what you committed to. It's the same thing here. Too often when people get in their own way, they start negotiating, like we talked about in the last bullet. They start negotiating and stop following through on the commitments they made when that heightened emotion goes away. You're going to lose motivation. You're going to lose bouts of that desire that was there, let's say a month ago. It's normal, but that doesn't mean we have to stop following through. It's actually more important than ever to continue to follow through and have great integrity with ourselves to the commitments that we made. Because I'll put it this way, you made that commitment for a reason. You made that commitment. You said, I'm going to do this. You did that for a reason when you were much more sound of mind. And whenever you're ready to throw in the towel or give up or not even want to call it course correct, change courses or give up or go against your commitments, it's when you are not in quite as good of place, or you're making a very emotional based decision. And we can't have that. Okay. Next, to further that, stop changing your mind. Again, we're talking about how to get out of your own way. By the way, if any of these are triggering to you, that's good. That means we're in the right spot. that means there's probably a level of these that are true for you. Okay. So, but one of the best ways to get out of your own way is make the decision is you don't change your mind anymore. If you say, I want to lose 30 pounds, or I want to change my life, or I want to join this program or whatever, actually commit and follow through with that. Too many people are constantly changing their mind. This is what I tell clients. I say, we can change the plan. We never change the goal. Too many people change they're like, well, I want to do this, then I want to do this, and I want to do this. And they wonder why they fall through the cracks. Whereas you have to stop changing your mind so much. This is why having a coach in your corner or a community in your corner is so important, because it can be kind of hard to navigate these things on your own. But one of the biggest ways people get in their own way is they are constantly changing their mind, and they never actually stick with something long enough to get a result, right? Excuse me, my allergies are really bad today. Excuse me. Like, let's say you start on a program or start on a diet or a plan, and you're good for 8 weeks, and then all of a sudden you lose motivation. Now all of a sudden you change your mind. You don't want to do that anymore, or you change your mind and want a different goal now. But then going back to number one, that's a pattern where you constantly change your mind and goal hop and program hop and all this stuff, but you're never going to get anywhere. That's how you're getting in your own ways. You're constantly changing your mind instead of saying, this is what I want, this is what I'm committing to, and then following through on that regardless of what your emotions say. Okay. Hopefully this is making sense. To further that, it's funny, these build like on each other. Next, to get out of your own way, stop believing everything you think and feel. Look, I am like the emotional guy, right? Like I am all about emotional intelligence, holding space for your emotions and all these things. But you cannot be so quick to believe what you think and feel. Your brain is a wild motherfucker, guys. Your brain can either be your greatest asset or your worst enemy when it comes to this journey. But you have to understand your brain, the way your brain works, is only about self-preservation. As in, your brain does not give two shits whether you make it to your goals. Your brain does not give two shits whether you're happy or not. Your brain is only about self-preservation and not dying, even if that means you're not happy and you never reach your goals. Think about I'll put it this way. Think about that movie, that kids movie. I think they call it The Croods, I think. That like little animated movie where there's like cavemen and all that. And they were scared to go outside of their cave. Right? Like the dad of the Croods, I think. I was giving this analogy to a client the other day, but is like in their cage, or in their cave. And the dad's like, do not go outside the cave. We could die. Like bad things happen. Now, granted, nothing bad's going to happen in their cave, but they're not happy. They're literally in a little 20 by 20 cave with this big family, and they're on top of each other and they hate their lives. Right? And then the kid starts to go outside and the dad's like, no, we could die. Right, you technically could, but there's also the rest of the world out there. But the brain doesn't think about that. The brain, or the ego, is only seeing what we'll lose or how we'll die. Well, it's no different in this game of weight loss and transformation. This is why you have to stop believing everything that you think and feel, because your brain is only about self-preservation. As in, if you've always been overweight and struggled, the idea of getting to where you want to be, there's resistance around it because you could get hurt again. If you've tried every diet under the sun and you've failed, but part of you have this feeling to try something that you know will work, like let's say one of my programs, because you're here listening to my show and you know this shit works, but you'll have resistance to it because your brain goes, no, but you might fail and you might get hurt again, and that hurt when you got hurt before, or that hurt when you failed before, right? That's how the brain works. But you have to understand, a mentor of mine told me this years ago, that the mind can only measure what it will lose. It cannot measure what it will gain. As in, when you go to change your life or level up or start really stretching yourself in really good ways, your egoic mind only can measure what you'll lose. How much money is this going to cost me? How much time is this going to take? This is death to those connections that I knew, or this old version of myself that I thought I was. All these different things that is through the lens of what you'll lose. Your mind is not going to measure what you'll gain. It cannot measure the happiness you'll gain, the money you'll gain, the life you'll gain, the experiences you'll gain, because the mind isn't even thinking about that. It's only in Croods mode of, oh my gosh, we're going to die. What am I going to lose? You can't be like that and get to where you want to be, which is why, going back to how people get in their own way, is they believe everything they think and feel. If you feel like a lost cause, you actually believe you're a lost cause. Or if you feel worthless, you actually believe you're worthless. Or you feel like you're not making progress, even though you are. So you actually are fully convinced you aren't making progress. Guys, I've had people lose like so much body fat and so much weight, but they feel like they haven't made progress. I've had so many people pissed at me. I've literally had clients and people I've been helping angry, like this doesn't work, I'm not making progress, you're a scam artist, then all of a sudden, then they look at their progress metrics and all of a sudden 3 pant sizes disappeared, or then all of a sudden 3 inches off their stomach disappeared, or all of a sudden 30 pounds is gone, 50 pounds is gone, or all of a sudden the pants aren't cutting into them anymore, what have you. It's because your brain is only going to show you through the filter of what you actually believe. So if you are not careful and you truly believe everything that you think and feel, you are going to be on a forever uphill sabotaging battle. So how most people get in their own way is they constantly believe everything they think and feel. So this is the hard dichotomy though. We need to hold space for those things. We hold space for what we feel. We hold space and reflect on what we think about, but we do not be quick to believe it. If you feel one thing, hold space for it, let it pass, but don't just buy into it immediately. Hopefully this is making sense. Next, I could literally do a whole podcast on that one. Next, getting out of your own way. Stop having poor integrity. This one's, I laugh because it's ironic. If you just did the shit you said you would do, you wouldn't struggle, or you wouldn't struggle this much. How most people get in their own way is they don't follow through on their commitments and things that they said they would do. If I said, hey, I'll meet you tomorrow at Starbucks for lunch at noon, and then I just blow you off and don't show up, and then we decided to meet again, and then I was going to go blow you off again, and then decided to blow you off again, you would start to think I don't have very good integrity. You would quit relying on me. It's the same thing here. Your integrity is your ability to do the things you said you would do. Now, the thing in weight loss and in transformation that really shows personal integrity is most people have no idea whether you do it or not, right? If I tell you I'm going to watch your kids tomorrow, you know if I don't show up or not. But if you say I'm going to start journaling and you don't, no one knows but you and that inner bullshit meter inside you. If you say to yourself, I'm going to start working out a few days a week and get moving, and you don't, no one else knows it but you. So this is why personal commitments are even more tied to integrity, is because it's what you do when no one's watching, or it's, do you do the things you say you would do or committed to doing when no one else would know? You see where I'm going with this? So we have to stop having poor integrity. Like if you said, I'm going to start taking this seriously, you need to start taking it seriously. How to get out of your own way is just do the things you said you would do. If you say, if you tell yourself, I'm going to start going to the gym 3 days a week, I'm going to start walking more, I'm going to start drinking water, I'm going to start journaling, I'm going to start going to therapy, I'm going to start whatever it is, actually just follow through on it. Have commitments, or have integrity and keep the commitments that you make to yourself. Here's the problem though. Most people I've seen, because usually someone gets upset when I say, oh, you break your promises to yourself, you have poor integrity. When I have that conversation, someone gets offended, because here's why. Most people who struggle with this have great integrity with everyone else. They're the kind of people that would take their shirt off their back for someone else. They're the kind of people who would do anything for their kids. But here's the thing. That means you have great integrity for them, but your personal integrity, we need to work on. Because here's the reality though. We could go crazy deep with this. It's probably because there's a level of a worthiness issue going on, right? As in, you don't think it's a big deal to blow you off because you don't value yourself, right? If you make a commitment to your mom and say, hey, I'm going to come help you tomorrow, bake or cook or whatever, and then you blow her off, you feel bad about that because you value your mom. You respect her, right? If you have your best friend that you're going to go watch her kids while she's at work or whatever, and you don't blow her off because you'll let her down. You care how she feels about you. You view her as a valuable person, so you don't want to let her down. So why don't you feel like that towards you? Why are you so okay blowing yourself off? Why are you so okay letting yourself down? It may be because you don't view you as valuable. It may be because you don't look at yourself very highly. It may be because you don't respect yourself. Well, I think that is a really big area of focus if that's the case. So, but here's the thing, the only way to fix that is kind of the other way from how we broke it, is if you don't value yourself because you treated yourself poorly, you have to start treating yourself well in order to feel better about yourself. This is why keeping the commitments you make to yourself makes you more confident and makes you feel better about you, because you are proving in your actions you're valuable. A lot of people have it backwards. A lot of people, they go about this game and they go, oh, once I feel better about myself, I'll treat myself better. But what other relationship outside of that dynamic does that work? Like, hey, I'm going to, once I feel good about you, or once I feel better about you, then I'll treat you well. Like, that's kind of shitty. Versus how you need to fix that is to show someone you value them, is you need to show it in your actions. Like if I told my wife, yeah, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, but my actions, if we shut the sound off, it shows I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Well, then that doesn't work. For her to know I value her, I need to show her in my actions. If my wife was deaf, I would hope to God she would know that I love her and I'm crazy about her and I value her as a human. If the sound was off, if she went deaf, it's because it's what are my actions showing? So don't just say I value myself or I'm good enough or da-da-da-da. What are your actions saying? Because if you want to feel better about yourself and value yourself, you have to show up for yourself when you don't feel like it. Don't be that one-sided relationship with yourself, okay? Moving on. How to get out of your own way? This is a big one. Forget the next 12 weeks. Only think about the next 12 years. Too often, especially in this game of transformation and weight loss, we're only thinking about the next 1 or 2 months, 3 months, 12 weeks, we'll just say. I need to lose weight now. I need to lose weight for this vacation. I need to da-da-da-da. And we make really dumb decisions. But I want you to start thinking of this almost like your retirement account, right? If you're investing in a 401k or index funds or things like that, you're not thinking about how much money you're going to be able to pull out of this thing in the next year. You're thinking about when you retire. Well, we don't have to go quite that far, but excuse me, when it comes to this stuff, forget the next 12 weeks, only make all decisions based off the next 12 years. Because a lot of people make really dumb decisions because they're thinking too short term. Like, oh yeah, for the next few months, I could totally get away with this. But then month 13, they fall off. Or, oh, I'm going to do this trendy diet. Or I'm going to do this really extreme approach because they're thinking 12 weeks. But my question is, could you do it for the next 12 years? Because the adage I use with my clients and collective members is if you cannot do it for the next 10 years, do not do it for the next 10 days. I could give two shits what you could do for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, if you're going to fall off in month 4. Every decision I make with the people that I lead and mentor and coach is, could you do this for the next decade? Now, granted, they're not going to be counting calories for the next decade. They're not going to be doing a fat loss phase for the next decade, but play devil's advocate. If they had to do any level of the program for the next decade, they would all go, I could totally do this. So for you, that's your filter. To get out of your own way, we need to think about this a little bit more maturely and go, next 12-year vision, could I do what I'm about to do for the next 12 years? Am I setting myself up for success for the next 12 years? Are my habits going to be good for the next 12 years? If yes, cool, you're in a great spot. But if they're not, then we have some work to do. We need to reverse engineer that. Because if you're like, no, I could do it for the next 12 weeks, 12 weeks is part of getting to the next 12 years. But if we are only short game thinking of 12 weeks, next couple months, you're going to make dumb decisions. You're going to be quick fix minded. You're going to fall off. You're going to sabotage. Or the whole point of this episode is get in your own way. So forget about the next 12 weeks. Only think about the next 12 years. Next, excuse me. This one's kind of rough around the edges, but I think it's important. It kind of goes back to the self-negotiation. Just stop making excuses. Easiest way to get out of your own way is stop making excuses. Now, granted, I know that I feel like a douchebag even saying that because that's a very normal meathead thing. Oh, just no excuses. Here's the thing. You have legitimate reasons in your life, right? I do not believe we all have the same 24 hours. I do not think, anything of the kind of the old way of that old mentality. But there are a lot of things that come up that when people are perpetually getting in their own way, there's a lot of excuses being made. Here's the thing with excuses. I want to think about it a little bit deeper. The problem with excuses is it's a lack of accountability. When someone says, oh, I can't do this because of this, you're now mitigating the accountability and responsibility, right? Oh, I can't do this because I don't have time because my time isn't my own, right? Versus what about all the people who have less time than you that are accomplishing your goals and dreams? You see what I'm getting at? Whereas don't take this out of context. There are so many legitimate reasons in your life that make things complicated or that throw a wrench into the engine, so to speak, or that make things hard. But if you are perpetually getting in your own way and you are constantly making excuses, that's who I'm talking to here. I'm not saying legitimate things don't happen. I'm not saying deaths in the family don't happen. I'm not saying that work overtime doesn't hit or kids don't get sick or things happen. I'm not saying that at all. But here's what's ironic. The people that I work with who have the most crazy shit going on in their life, I'm talking about multiple family members dying. I'm talking about crazier work schedules than I could ever fathom, of multiple jobs. I'm talking about traveling different countries and running businesses and this whole 9 yards. Ironically, they make the least amount of excuses. But it's the people that I find who have all the time in the world, who have all the resources and everything going on, make the most excuses. Now that may be an overgeneralization, so I'm sorry if that offends you, but the whole concept of this podcast episode is how to get out of your own way. So if you're listening to this, I'm guessing you get in your own way a lot. So then I would ask, how many excuses do you find yourself making? Like if I had you write down every day the excuses you make. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, my boss put me in a bad mood today. Oh, I don't feel like it. I lost motivation. Oh, this happened. It's kind of bullshit, because just because we can't do one thing doesn't mean we can't do another. I have so many clients of mine who have stuff going on, but they capitalize it in another area. Think about it like this, let's say someone gets surgery over here. Well, they can't work out, but that same person also is now being sure they're dialed in on their food. Well, that's not, well, sir, you might say, well, surgery is an excuse. You're right. It's not. But if someone uses, let's say, surgery as a reason to eat like an asshole, oh, I can't work out, so I might as well not even try. That's an excuse. Or let's say I have a lot of clients traveling right now, traveling to different countries, different states, and they can't get their normal workouts in, and they aren't even able to have a huge choice in what they're eating because of where they're at. But if they said, oh, so why not? Why even try? No, but they're going to stop when they're full. They're still going to prioritize better decisions when they can. They're still taking their journal and going to do inner work. They're still going to get their walks in and things like that. Whereas at the end of the day, when you are making an excuse, you are mitigating ownership. But find a way to go, how can I still be in charge? How can I still show up for myself? And it will fix a lot of these things. Next, how to get out of your own way. This one is really unpopular. Scale your plan back. No one likes to hear this one. This one's a little bit of an ego blow to a lot of people because at the end of the day, there are times you need to scale your plan back. This is why I think of it, like I said it earlier in the episode, I said, don't change the goal, change the plan. If the plan you started on is not sustainable or doable in this season of your life, we need to scale back. I have plenty of people I work with who they started off and life was chill, cool, calm, and collected, and they were doing 3 or 4 or 5 habits and they're good. But then let's say death in the family hits, life goes sideways, and they're traveling and it's the holidays, we may scale back to something super small. Actually, there's a concept in coaching in the collective I call the bad day backup, or the plan B mentality, where I believe in having plan Bs. I believe in having a backup plan because one, I don't believe in all or nothing, by the way, but because if you go, this is plan A is the only way I can go about this. And then if you can't fulfill plan A, you fall off. Well, what if you have a plan B that is like your lifeboat? Right? Let's say your plan A is something like I track my calories, I hit my protein, I strength train 3 days a week, and I journal every day. Well, if life hits you crazy and you can't fulfill on that, well, what would be your plan B? Well, how about you just journal before bed every night and eat protein in every meal? Boom. That was doable when life gets crazy versus when that's not. So having like a level of a plan B where you can scale your plan back but still show up for yourself. Because again, this goes back to not negotiating with yourself and not making excuses. Because you're not negotiating, oh, I don't want the goal. I'm not, I'm an all or nothing person. I might as well quit and throw in the towel. But you're not also making excuses of, oh, I'm having surgery, or I'm traveling, or I'm this, or I'm that. You're going, what's still in my control and what's not? How can I keep my goal in place but change the plan so it's doable in the season I'm in right now? That is being on the offense in the trenches with this thing. That's like quite literally what I do when I coach people. It's like that level of in the trenches. So and one of the best ways to get out of your own way is if you're struggling being in your own way, scale the plan back. If you can't run, go back to walking. If you can't do 3 habits, go to 2. If you can't dial in things like your nutrition, dial in just your workouts. Whatever we need to do, scale this thing back until it is laughably simple to do. Like quite literally, I've had clients who in the past who, let's say the idea of doing their nutrition-y habits, like tracking their food or eating well and working out, like that panic attack central. So we'll actually I scale them back. I'm like, make your bed in the morning, drink 1 glass of water and do a gratitude journal. Those aren't even fat loss related, but we had to use those as a springboard to get them to actually be able to do their fat loss habits. But we have to, if we can't put the cart before the horse. If we can't walk, we shouldn't be trying to run. So for you, if you are constantly getting in your own way, don't try to make the plan bigger, badder, and more crazy or faster. Scale that thing back. Sometimes we have to draw back to propel forward, okay? Next, getting out of your own way. Stop letting your emotions change your actions. Man, this is the one that if you're going to take anything to the bank, take this one where you can't let your emotions change your actions. Like there's this movement kind of going around in the coaching space where it's like, fuck your feelings. Excuse me, where I don't like it. I don't like the whole like fuck your feelings, because feelings are valid. They're supposed to be felt. It's how we heal and it's how we progress through stuff. The one thing about the whole fuck your feelings mentality is we don't let our feelings dictate our actions. But I do agree with that. But I feel like we need both. We don't want to live in the land of, oh, all my feelings are accurate. Like, oh, if I feel like a failure, I must be a failure. If I feel like a lost cause, I must be a lost cause. I feel unmotivated. I'm just going to lay on the couch all day. But I also don't identify all the way with the other side of the spectrum where it's like, fuck your feelings. They don't matter. Just do shit. I think we need both. I think if there was a Venn diagram, there's in the middle here. Whereas you need to honor and hold space for what you feel because you're an emotional being. But I also think we need to not negotiate our actions based on our feelings. And we need to not let our emotions dictate what we do. I think you need to hold space for what you feel, but then stay committed to the plan. I think you need to honor what's coming up for you and what you're feeling and what's going on inside and even the darker parts of you, but still show up for yourself in spite of not feeling good. Right? It's like the whole concept of, well, do it mad, do it sad, do it angry. Just, you got to do it still. I mean, think about like your job. Like you don't feel upset, but then not go to your job. But how many times do we feel upset, then say, fuck my nutrition? It's the same kind of thing. Whereas we can't let our actions be influenced by our emotions, which is really hard because we're emotional creatures. Your subconscious mind is your emotional mind. So this is a really hard one for a lot of people. This is where drifting and sabotage sneaks in. So for you, again, going back to the whole point of this episode, if you are constantly getting in your own way, I would assume you're constantly changing your actions based off of what you feel. Whereas we need to stay concrete with our commitments. You see how all these kind of points kind of go back and intertwine to each other? We need to uphold our commitments and follow through with what we said we would do, having great integrity, but while we hold space for our emotions, but not believe it. See how it's nuanced? And again, guys, I don't want you to take this wrong. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm not saying this is just so anyone can do. Well, I mean, anyone can do it, but I'm not saying it's one of those things where it's just so easy. It's hard. It sucks. It takes a lot of this inner work that I talk about. But this is how we get to the other side. This is where you become ambitious yet equanimous. This is where you achieve your goals but have peace about you as well. This is where you're reliable but not rigid. So hopefully this is making sense. Next, getting out of your own way. This is so unpopular. Just do the hard thing. Just do the hard thing and run into the resistance. I'll combine these two. Do the hard thing and run into resistance. Whatever the hard thing you're avoiding is, do it. Whatever you feel the resistance around, lean into it. Like quite literally, whatever the hard thing is that you are most resistant to, take that as a sign to propel into it. Something that I've worked really hard to do is whenever I feel resistance around something, I know I have to do it. Like that's the direction I go. I use it as my green light, and it's hard. Like one of my favorite authors, his books are all behind me in different spots. And one of my favorite authors is Stephen Pressfield. His book called The War of Art changed the way I viewed resistance and doing hard things where it's required. Just assume resistance is absolutely required to get to where you want to be. Resistance is absolutely required to get to where you want to be because it's how this game works. Your brain, like it goes back to that like survival mode thing. Your brain does not want to change. Your brain does not want to change. Your physiology doesn't want to change. And the mind gravitates to what's most familiar. So there is going to be resistance anytime you try to change your life. No one changes their life on an accident. If you are trying to get a greater mind and grow yourself intellectually, it's going to be hard. If you are trying to change your body and lose weight, feel better, build muscles, get strong, be resilient, it's going to be hard. There's resistance everywhere. Anything that you want to achieve, there is always going to be resistance. And if at the first sign of resistance, you go, oh, I'm not supposed to have the thing. This is a sign from God that I'm not supposed to go after it. I've seen that one a lot. You're asking for failure. There's resistance in everything. If you notice any skill set or character trait you want to get, you have to go through resistance to get it. If you want to become patient, you're going to have to experience impatience. If you want to build courage, you're going to have to go through fearful times and scary things. If you want to be strong, you're going to have to get fatigued. It doesn't matter what character trait that you want to get. Like, I mean, think about it. Like, so let's say someone's reliable. Let's say you want to be reliable. You're going to have to go through trying times where it will be easy to give in. right? If you want to have great integrity, you're going to have to do things when you don't want to do them. If you want to build discipline, you're going to have things that are not going to be enjoyable or convenient or that you want to do. Anything that you want requires the inverse of resistance. So if every sign of hard things or resistance comes up, you fold and crumble, you'll never get to where you want to be. I will also go so far to say this. If you were, let's say there was no resistance and you finally made it, you wouldn't enjoy it. You wouldn't like it. You wouldn't love it. It would not be as fulfilling. I know everyone wants to test that out for themselves, but I can tell you it's not, the resistance is what builds the person you have to become. The resistance in the hard things is what literally forges the version of yourself that you're trying to become to get to where you want to be. It's what creates the skill sets. It's what creates the experiences. It's what creates the actual character traits of who you are that then change your personal reality because it changed your personality. Hopefully this is making sense. So in order to get out of your own way, the whole point of this episode is just do the hard thing, whatever it may be, and really just run into resistance. When resistance comes up, don't go, oh, this sucks. It's, oh, that means I'm on the right path. For me, whenever I have resistance in my life, it is such a reassurance of, oh, this is the way I need to go. Oh, this means I'm going the right way. Because if things aren't hard and things have no resistance, it's probably not changing you. You're probably stuck and staying in the same place. So home stretch. We're about 35 minutes in. Okay, cool. Okay. Getting out of your own way. This kind of piggybacks off the last one really well. Sit in your shit. Literally, sit in the darkest parts of you. What I mean by that is we as a society and people have a tendency to want to escape parts of us. Like we only want to be here for happy, joy, gratitude, excited, these elated emotions. But when it comes to fear, worry, sadness, lonely, depressed, anxious, hopeless, then we want to escape. One of the best things you can do for yourself, to get out of your own way, is be with the darkest parts of you. Unconditionally love yourself. Unconditionally be there for all parts of you. Like imagine if you had a friend or a spouse that was only with you when things were good. Like think about I don't know about you. I took my marriage vows very seriously when it was for better or for worse. Well, that means I accept and hold space and love my wife and am there for her in any situation and her to me. But I couldn't fathom how much it would hurt if my wife was only here for me when things were good. And as soon as I had a bad day, she's out. Oh, she's not there to support. She's not there to love. She's not there to help. That would feel so one-sided. But my wife is the best human in the world. And she is here for me in every walk of life, and the good, the bad, the ugly, the upset, everything that I bring to the table. She is this unapologetic, accepting space of love for me. And it's so amazing. But why can't you do that for you? Why is it you're only there for you, getting in your own way only there for you when things are good? But as soon as you feel anxiety, distract with food. As soon as you feel unworthy, you run from it and have to prove your worthiness. Or as soon as you're stressed, you escape with a distraction. One of the best ways to get out of your own way is to actually start sitting in your shit. Actually start becoming a space of love for the darker parts of you. The problem, this could be a whole nother concept for another episode. The problem is you think you are the darkness. You think you are anxiety. You think you are worthless. You think it goes back to that belief in what you think and feel thing versus that's just stuff going on inside you. That's just a part of you. That's a very sad inner child, or that's just the old story of this or the old pattern of that. But this is why we need to sit with ourselves. We need to be a space of acceptance, as airy-fairy as that sounds, for all parts of us, especially the dark parts. It's why this podcast is called Dieting from the Inside Out. It's why when I coach someone, we have to do the inner work before we do the outer work. It's why inside the collective, I have all my frameworks around fixing these darker parts of you and the underlying things so we can fix the underneath so the surface level, just be honest, takes care of itself. It's the same thing here. So in order to get out of your own way, you have to start to be with you in all seasons, in all parts of you. Not be. Stop trying to out-intellectualize your feelings, okay? Because here's the other thing too, is one of the biggest ways people get in their own way is by the things they do to avoid being in their darkness. mean, that's where emotional eating comes from. That's where escapism comes from. That's where really unhealthy coping mechanisms come from. That's where a lot of drinking alcohol comes from. That's where a lot of death scrolling on TikTok comes from. That's where a lot of overworking comes from. That's where a lot of hiding your emotions with food, or once I start, I can't stop, or having issues with boredom. That's where a lot of those issues come from, is you don't want to sit with all parts of you. So if you automatically are like, ooh, I'm going to go sit with myself and I'm going to be with myself, this is where a lot of those unhealthy or not so great coping mechanisms, they'll start to fall away. So almost done. We have 2 more. Getting out of your own way, second to last, is just do your best. You know what's ironic is I know that so many parents say that, but those same parents turn around and don't do their best. It's kind of hypocritical. What I mean by that is a lot of the bad decisions we make, it's because you're not doing your best. When you go, fuck it, I'm gonna start over Monday. Well, hang on, that's doing your best? When you've already messed up a little bit, and instead of like course correcting and making a better decision, you say, fuck it, and throw everything to the window. Like, that's doing your best? Of course not. Or if you say, once I start, I can't stop, tell me it's doing your best. Or when you, if I can't do a little bit of workout, I'm not going to do any of a workout. Like, that's doing your best. Look, there are times like resting is doing your best. There are times, like there are outliers, but most of the issues where you get in your own way, like the nature of this podcast episode, is you just simply aren't doing your best. If you just do your best, so many problems go away. Literally, because you are on purpose, doing your best with the thing, making the offense action, doing your best journaling. It may not be perfect, but like you still did it. Doing part of a workout because that's all you had time for is still doing your best. But a lot of the bad decisions you make when you get in your own way, it's when you're not doing your best. So my suggestion to you is reflect and go, what's my best right now? Because 50%, let's say you're 50% or 20% because of life, well, 50% or 100% of 50% is still 100%. It's still your best. So just do your best and a lot of these issues go away. And then the last part of getting out of your own way is just be the one until you are the one. This sounds really corny, but this is a really big thing that I want you to think about. You have to be before you are. What I mean by that is, think of it like sleeping. You have to basically act like you're asleep before you fall asleep, right? Like when you go to lay your head down at night and you close your eyes and you are literally acting like you're asleep, and then you will fall asleep. Right? Yes, some people will play on their phone and then doze off, but for most of us, you sit your phone down, you lay down, close your eyes, and you basically, if I said, hey, act asleep, you act asleep, and that's what caused you to fall asleep. Well, for you to get to where you want to be, you have to start being that person right now. The issue is most people act in congruence with who they are right now. So let's say you don't like the way you look, you don't like the way you feel, you're unhappy with your life. So you basically act like that person. You operate as that person. Then you wonder why you live the same reality over and over again. Whereas you have to start being that one until you are that one. I know that I'm really hoping this is making sense. What I mean by that is I talk about this with identity work with like the collective and my clients and things like that, where in order to get to where you want to be, you have to change your identity, right? It's not, how do I lose 30 pounds? It's who do I have to become who loses 30 pounds? It's the same thing here. You have to be that version of yourself before you walk into that person. You can't keep your same personality, but then create a different personal reality. That's not how that works. You have to become a different person, right? It's the example I use a lot is like, imagine if you have a kid who just fucks off in school, doesn't work very hard, doesn't do their best. And then they realize that, oh, I want to get a scholarship to go to football, and they're like, Mom, Dad, I want to get the scholarship to go to the school, but I've got F's in this class. They can't stay a shitty student and get good grades. You as the parent would say, well, you would have to become a good student because good students are the only ones who get good grades. Well, what do good students do? They turn in their homework, they show up early, they sit in the front of the class, they ask questions, they're attentive. So for your kid to get the good grades, he has to become a good student. Well, in order to start to become a good student, he has to be a good student before he is a good student. Before he gets the good grades, he has to be a good student. Then the good grades come later. It's the same thing with your goals. You are too often acting, the reason you get in your own way so much is you are acting in congruence with a person who does not have your goals. You literally act like once I start, I can't stop, and you believe it and you follow through in those actions. You continue to hide your emotions with food, even though you're trying to be the person that lost 30 pounds. You see where I'm going with this? You have to be the one while you aren't them. before you actually become them. Because your current reality, your current results, no matter what they are, is an artifact. They are from the past. Your past actions of, let's just say, the last year is what brought you to where you're at now. Okay, so if you are unhappy with where you're at now, we have to change your actions now, who you are, all these things, and then that will cause the new version of you later. But you have to be that version before you actually are that version. It's the delayed game of how this works. So the number one way at the end of all this to get out of your own way is actually act in congruence with the version of yourself you're trying to become who happens to get those results. It's not, how do I stay the shitty version of myself and lose 30 pounds? It's, who do I have to become who loses 30 pounds? Because you have to change your personal you have to change your personality before you change your personal reality. It's just how this game works. So that is the last one on my list of how to get out of your own ways. You have to start being that version of yourself before you actually are that version. Because if you be that first person long enough, you will become them and the results later. So at all times reflect, who am I being right now? Am I being my old self? That's an all or nothing person that hides their emotions with food and or am I being that version of myself that has my results? Am I being calm of mind? Am I having delayed gratification? Am I holding space for my emotions instead of running straight to food? These kind of things. Always ask yourself, who am I being right now? So hopefully this makes sense. And that is it for today's episode. I know this was a little bit longer than I intended. I was wanting to be about 30 minutes, but that's what happens sometimes. Otherwise, if you have not subscribed yet to the episode or to the show, please do that. I also have one ask. I really want to grow this show in 2025. It's one of my biggest projects. I really want to just take to a whole new level. So my one ask is this, I want you to share this. If you listen to, for every episode you listen to, if you got value out of it, I want you to share it with one person. That's it. If everyone on the show shared the episode, literally everything would double and so many more people will get the help that they need. Because if this content helps you, it will help your friends and circle. And the more your circle is elevated, the more you're elevated. So my one ask, I'm telling you, I put a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money, a lot of everything into this show. And all I'm asking is for you to share it with one person. So if you get value out of one episode, I want you to share it with someone, send them the link, post it on your story, what have you. Tag me in it if you do so I can reshare it. But that is my one ask. Otherwise, that is it for today's episode. I have a lot of cool stuff in the description for you, especially if you're new around here. I got a whole bunch of free gifts. Otherwise, that is it for today's episode. Let me know if you need anything. I love you, and I'll talk to you next week.